This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's episode 242 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. Make sure you're following Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera86 and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you would like to listen to the show, which will be up a little bit later on. But if you want to be a part of the chat, you want to be a part of the conversation, you're doing that right here on YouTube. You can do that on X as well. I think they fixed whatever problem it was with doing live streams on X. So that's up and running. We got 32 people in the room. Shout out Maureen, Carlos Ortiz, Green Machine in the room as well. So appreciate all of you for tuning in. A lot of talk for the New York Mets over the past week or so. And we're going to get into that as well as the top prospects. And no other person to talk about top prospects. Well, there's a couple people that I like to talk Mets prospects with, but Joe DeMayo here is the man with the top 30 prospects already in the bank. The list has been updated. We are definitely going to get into that at some point during the show. Joe, it's great to have you back on the show, man.
Good seeing you, and yeah, no one else to talk to. Who else knows prospects in the Mets sphere?
I know you and Ernest Dove like to go at each other for a little fun there, and I've had you guys both on, both fantastic guests, and appreciate you for being on this show with us today. And shout out to Ivy in the chat from Till Mets Do His Part. Appreciate you for tuning in as well. Let's get right into it because the Mets had a little bit of news here with Freddy Peralta. Will they sign an extension with him? Will they won't? What are the terms? And the whole talk has been, what are the demands from Freddy Peralta, or what his prerequisites are of what he wants. Obviously 29 years old right now. He'll be a free agent at the end of the season, and he's seeking a 7 to 8 year deal, which John Heyman discussed on the New York Post. Actually, Peralta told him on an interview. David Stern's not really known for giving out long-term deals and extensions, but he traded for Freddy Peralta twice, and giving up the prospects that he did in Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat. I don't know if I've even asked you what your thoughts were on giving up those two prospects, if you thought that was a fair trade for the Mets to do that. So maybe we'll start off with that and then get into the extension.
Yeah, I mean, it was a high price to pay. There's no question about it. You're giving up two top 100 type of prospects. Jet is a consensus. Sproat, I think it kind of depends where you look. He's either in the back half, or there might be a couple places he's not. But those are two legitimate major league pieces. I think Brandon Sproat, if Milwaukee wants, they can plug him into their rotation day one, and he could pitch at the back end of the rotation. And obviously Jet Williams, a long favorite of mine. I think he's going to be a good big leaguer, and there's honestly no better team fit for Jet Williams than the Milwaukee Brewers, who seem like they have like 7 Jet Williamses in their lineup, just a bunch of little guys that can run around. So yeah, a big price to pay, but look, you wanted a frontline starter. You needed a frontline starter, and that's the price you pay. And the Mets have held on the prospects, at least the top end of their system, for so long. So that way the system is built up to the point where you can give up 2 top 100 type prospects, and you're still going to have in the neighborhood of a top 5 to 10 farm system in baseball.
Now, given the situation with the way David Stearns has handled the pitchers, free agents, whether in Milwaukee or in New York, do you see him breaking his kind of cardinal rule and signing Freddy Peralta to a long-term deal here
before opening day? No, I don't think so. And if Freddy is looking for 7 to 8 years, I don't know if he will ever get that from the Mets, if I'm being totally honest. I do think David Stearns is going to have to buck the trend eventually as far as giving a long-term deal to a pitcher. We know they offered 10 years to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, but that's essentially it. They haven't tried long-term with anybody else. Freddy Peralta, to me, belongs with the Mets. When I was down in spring training, I spent time in the clubhouse, spent time on the field. And when I walked in, it just felt like a new day at school, right? Everybody, so many new faces, so many people I didn't recognize, a lot of people still getting to know each other. But Freddy just felt like he's been there for years, even though he's one of the brand new guys. So I'd love to see him long-term with the Mets, but if his expectation is 7 to 8 years, I have some doubt that the Mets will be the team that issues that.
Well, he did say in that interview with John Heyman, he's like, I feel very comfortable here. I love being here. And I'm like, man, you've only been here for like a couple weeks. You didn't even go to Queens yet. So very interesting, his comments there. Now, hearing these demands and requests from Peralta, are you more inclined to wait now in the offseason? I know you said you wouldn't sign him right now, but would you wait until the offseason to get something like this done?
I mean, if Freddy Peralta, like my vision, when we talked about it on the Mets pod, if we were to try to get Freddy Peralta for a contract, I'd be looking at 5 years or something like that. If he's willing to come into that range, I would talk contract today and I would try to get it done. But if his vision, at least now, is 7 to 8 years, let's play it out and see how the year goes. And at the end of the day, if nothing has been proven here over the last few years, Steve Cohen will financially back whatever decision it is that David Stearns or his predecessors wanted to make. And if that means they change their tune and Freddy Peralta is someone they want for the long term, I think it'll be bankrolled. So it's not so much of a concern. Whereas if the Mets were like a mid-market team and we weren't talking about the Mets that we are, it would be more like, well, if you let him go, you're just going to get outbid by one of the big dogs. The Mets are one of the big dogs, so that's a little less concerning.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with the number of years. Armand in the chat saying, I don't think Peralta will get 7 or 8 years from any team. I mean, I feel like there will be some team that offers that amount, at least one or two. Maybe it's not going to be the Mets, but he agrees 5 years with the mutual option for 6 is a max for any starting pitcher. I think it has to be somewhere in a 5-year deal for a happy medium between the Mets and Peralta to get something done. I think the biggest factor here is that Steve Cohen and David Stearns are able to raise the average annual value on any contract to make a short-term deal look so lucrative, just like they did with Bo Bichette.
Right. Yeah, there's no question about it. There's different ways to do it, but that tactic hasn't been proven to be something that works out ahead of free agency. That's something where you're in free agency and maybe the Freddy or whoever you want to talk about is not getting the contract that they thought they were going to get. And it's like, all right, I'll just take more money short term, prove myself, and I'll go back out on the market.
Now, he pitched today versus the Yankees, 3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Those 2 runs came in the first inning, but then he retired the final 7 batters that he faced. So a nice bounce back there. He's been working with Alvy on pitch selection and how to get that working. What do you think of what you've seen so far from Freddy? I know it's been only 2 starts, but he the first game, I don't think he even gave up a hit. Like, what are some of your observations on what you've seen, what you've liked from Freddy Peralta so far on the mound?
He looks like what I thought the Mets were getting. I mean, the fastball velocity was up today from the first start. You saw him mixing in the slider and the curveball and the changeup, of course. So fastball Freddy has the expanded repertoire. And what I would say is he looks what I thought I was getting when the Mets traded for him.
Now, when we turn to some of the other pitchers in this rotation, Sean Manaea being one of them, Kodai Senga being the other one, both of them pitched this past weekend. Sean Manaea versus the Miami Marlins on Friday, 3 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 run, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, on 33 pitches. Now, what was the concern to me was the miles per hour on that fastball at 88.1, which was down 3.4 from last season. Mets don't seem to be too concerned since it's his first outing, but I don't know, man. That's a big drop.
Got to see what he does in his next start and see if it starts to tick up, as obviously he's came off a whole bunch of injuries last year and he's kind of readjusting his arm angle. Like the drop down that we knew in 24 that was so successful, in 25 it's like he overdid it and dropped down too far. Now he's trying to find like the happy medium again. There's a lot of tinkering going on with Sean Manaea, but I need to see, as you said, that fastball velocity matters. Like throwing 88 miles an hour in the major leagues nowadays, it's very hard to last unless you are a super funky left-handed reliever. And that's specifically someone for an inning. You're not looking for someone trying to go 5 to 6. So I'm not quite as encouraged or maybe confident as the Mets are in Sean Manaea right now, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he has at least a couple more spring starts to go, and we'll see what it looks like as he moves forward. But if we're entering opening day and Manaea's just throwing 88-mile-an-hour fastballs, my confidence level in a bounce back from Manaea will certainly not be too high.
Yeah, that 88, 89, that's like prime changeup area there. So like I want to see what happens in his next start before getting too concerned about it. Kodai Senga, on the other hand, his velocity topped out at 98.9 and had the average velocity 96.7 miles per hour. So that's good to see from Kodai Senga. And never really, with his injuries, never really affected his arm yet. Knock on wood, doesn't happen. Most of them has been lower body injuries, and we saw the one that happened on a throw to first base a couple times, actually, 2024 and 2025. Against the Cardinals on Saturday, 2 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts. Through 50 pitches, 34 of them for strikes. Carlos Mendoza is saying that he likes seeing this new version of Kodai Senga, a new mentality, one of self-awareness, and he feels like he's more and obviously so. It's a new spring, being more happy-go-lucky and being a part of this team. And, we know the mechanics has always been an issue for Senga, more mentally, I think, for him, that he hasn't been able to get himself going. I said that he is really the X factor to me of this pitching staff, because if you could get him to where he was in 2023 or even the first half of 2025, I mean, that's a top 2, top 3 pitcher to add along Freddy Peralta and Nolan McLean.
Before he got injured, his ERA was 1.47. And then he went down with the injury. And obviously when he came back, it wasn't particularly good. His fastball was like 93 and 94. So the velocity being where it's at, the Mets are incredibly encouraged by that. He came out of the start healthy, which is very important, feels good within his mechanics. Everything that I've heard when I was down there and then after I left from down in Port St. Lucie is Kodai Senga looks like the guy he was in 2023. Like right now, that's how he looks. Still early, just the calendar just flipped to March. We got a long ways to go before even opening day, let alone going deep into the season. But I think there's a lot of things to take away from his first start that should give some confidence that maybe it's not first half of 2025 Kodai Senga, but I think if things continue on the trajectory that they are, you're looking at Kodai Senga being a really meaningful guy that can pitch in the front half of a rotation.
Who has to prove more here between the two? Is it Sean Manaea or is it Kodai Senga?
I think Senga still has more to prove. And I think it's obviously health. That's the most important thing. He needs to prove that he could stay on the field. Manaea, I actually don't have as much concern about him staying on the field. It didn't seem like you had the bone chips, but those tend to, I guess, resolve themselves over time.
Steph Lugo had that.
Yeah. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it seems like they just don't bother you after a certain amount of time, and the oblique was a fluke. I'm much more worried about Senga, the pitcher. Manaea, the pitcher. Senga, it's just more stay on the field, and if you can prove that, you're going to be a significant factor for the Mets this year.
And you think that both of them will break camp with the Mets in the rotation?
I'm interested to see how the Mets handle it, because the way the schedule's set up early in April, like they have 6 starters, but there's not really going to be a need for a 6-man rotation because of all the off days. I wouldn't be shocked. And I was just listening a little while ago to Evan Roberts' show, the Rico Bronia, and he talked to Mendy down in Port St. Lucie today or yesterday, whenever he talked to him. And the piggyback situation, Mendoza said that's been discussed with pitchers on the staff. So I wonder, will Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea piggyback to begin the year? And that way the rotation is Freddy, Nolan McLean, Clay Holmes, David Peterson, and then the combination of Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea.
It'll be interesting to see them do that. They only did that once last year, that game in Kansas City, where that was probably the best we saw of Sean Manaea, and then it all went to crap at the end of that game. But that was where he looked his best coming back from injury. And then you also you could think of Tobias Myers being a part of this, whether he's starting to throw in the rotation as a starting pitcher, and then they're going to move him to maybe being a long man at some point. So it'd be interesting to see how they use him as well. They got a lot of options, which is good. And the biggest thing is for just them all to stay healthy, man.
That's it. And, I know we're talking about plans and how they're going to set up the rotation and roles for guys. We still got 2.5 weeks or whatever till opening day. So we still have to get there. But as it sets up right now, I think the 4 guys I mentioned are kind of locked into regular, quote unquote, starting spots. And then I think you could see Senga and Manaea, maybe tag team, piggyback deal, and Tobias Myers. The long relief role is important, but it's even more important in the month of April because pitchers aren't getting pushed as much early in the year when it's cold out and you're not trying to push guys to 105 pitches. It's get them out at 80, get them out at 85, 90. There's a lot more. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think the length that Tobias Myers is capable of providing, if everybody's healthy, gives the Mets an advantage in April.
I think that's the one improvement I want to see from, actually 2 things I want to see from these pitchers in this staff. For the starters, it's length. Please give us a lot more length than you did last season. 5 at the very least, it has to be 5 innings. I mean, it's hard to be asking for that, but they do have to do that, and to limit the walks. I think if they can combine those 2 together, I think that the pitching staff is going to do just fine. Shout out everyone that's in this room right now. Appreciate G Money Stacks coming in here. Armand. Shout out to Wardy. Congrats to him on his new role with the New York Post, man. Good job on that, and appreciate you for being a part of the show today, man. Also want to talk about another starting pitcher who made his spring debut, Christian Scott. I mean, he looked really, really good. Some people say dominant as how he looked versus Team Israel on Wednesday. 2 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, no runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. 40 of 50 pitches were for strikes, and his fastball topping out at 96. Outside of some major injuries to this rotation, or some, I guess, very putrid performances that we may see at the back end, it's safe to say that Christian Scott will be heading to AAA. It's probably the right move for him.
Yeah, he'll start the year in AAA, and that's perfectly fine. They're still going to be building him up kind of slowly to start out. Like, I don't think when Christian Scott makes his first start for Syracuse in April, it's going to be, 5 2/3 or 6 innings. It might be 3 1/3 to 4 innings. Like, I think they're going to build him up a little bit from a pitch count standpoint, but you couldn't be more encouraged. Everything that I had heard was Christian Scott was back to normal. And sometimes it's like they'll say things, kind of got to see it. But yeah. Christian Scott looked exactly the guy that was, I think people almost forget how highly regarded of a prospect he was. He was ranked as high as 60th in the sport by Baseball America just in 2024. He was number 2 on my top 30. So I love Christian Scott. And he brought all the pitches that he has to the table. The fastball with that ride, he was up to 97 miles an hour, which is kind of exactly where he was. He has both the gyro slider and the sweeper, so kind of those 2 distinct shapes, and a split change that he's throwing as well. So for me, the results are great. I try not to freak out too much about like stat lines in spring training, but when they're really, really good, I like to acknowledge it. And from a stuff standpoint and the ability to throw strikes, which is typically something that takes the longest to come back from when you have Tommy John surgery. We saw Sandy Alcantara struggle last year with strikes in the first half, and then he got further removed from the surgery. He was much better in the second half. To see Christian throw 40 of 50 pitches for strikes, couldn't ask for more for a first outing off of surgery for Christian Scott.
Yeah, it's been a long journey for him. Coming in 2024, had those couple starts before the injury, and it's been a long journey back for him. And a lot of pitchers go through the Tommy John thing. It's now like a matter of when, right? Like a matter of when they're going to have this surgery, where back then is just like, oh man, I hope my pitcher doesn't have it. But what does Christian Scott have to do to become a mainstay in the Mets rotation in the future? Like, what should he be focusing on from the last time we saw him in his debut in the major leagues?
Definitely against left-handed hitters. That was something that he did struggle with in the minor leagues, and he also struggled in his short stint in the major leagues. The changeup is an important pitch, and if he could have like a sinker or a cutter or something to just change the eyes of the hitter. I think for specifically lefties, that'll be a huge help for him. And look, I think he's set up for it, and the Mets certainly are going to have rotation spots open after 2026. I know we're not at 2026 yet officially, a couple weeks away, but if you just look ahead, Clay Holmes can opt out at $13 million. Clay Holmes is opting out. David Peterson is a free agent. You have Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga entering the last years of their contract. Freddy Peralta is a free agent. So I think there's going to be a spot for Christian Scott beyond 2025. And the reality, we've been here before. We're Mets fans. There's going to be significant opportunity for Christian Scott in 2026 itself, because you're going to need somewhere between 40 and 50 pitchers to get through 162 games. So I anticipate seeing a good chunk of Christian Scott this year. And I think if he is able to make those strides against left-handed hitters and kind of reduce the split issue he has, there's no reason he can't be a mainstay in the rotation starting next year.
It'd be in the chat saying Scott is nasty in the zone. Him and Willard, he hearts.
Yep.
And Justin Willard, the new Mets pitching coach. Now, I've been watching the WBC, and for Team Puerto Rico, one guy that we saw the other night, Eduardo Rivera. This is like a prospect that got dropped from the Oakland A's, linked up with Boston under Willard's infrastructure, and has now become a top prospect in the Boston Red Sox farm system. So it's just a little taste of what we could possibly see under the new Justin Willard regime here. What are your thoughts on bringing in Justin Willard and, kind of his background of what we've seen so far from him?
Yeah, I think a lot of Mets pitchers are really excited. And as Ibby said, his message is right out of the gates, nasty stuff in the zone. That's what Justin Willard is looking for. It's a very forward thinking, plug your ears if you don't like them, very analytically driven guy. And he blends perfectly with this Mets pitching development system. And it's one of those things that, dating back to last year and the years prior, Jeremy Hefner and Eric Jagers down at the minor league level were really connected. And I think the plan is for Justin Willard and Eric Jagers to be connected. And Willard, of course, having the background in player development, I think is big. And this is going to be his first time as like a big league pitching coach. So he has some stuff to prove, but he's considered to be one of the brightest pitching minds in the sport. And he had very little interest in leaving the Boston Red Sox. The Mets were one of just a select few jobs that he would have even considered leaving for. So I think all things considered, when you lose Jeremy Hefner, who I know gets a lot of grief from Mets fans, I thought he was great. I love Jeremy Hefner as a pitching coach, but getting someone like Justin Willard, I think, is just going to take the Mets pitching to that next level.
Armand and Amazing with a question here. Do the Mets have enough starting pitching depth? Should they consider signing a guy like Lucas Giolito just to add, being this far in spring training, they might be able to get him on a 1-year type deal?
I mean, we right now have 6 starters. I don't think 7 is in the cards. So I couldn't imagine the Mets pursuing a regular, like, major league deal. But if there's someone that ends up settling for a minor league deal and willing to be in AAA Syracuse as depth just because they don't have a job, sure, that's fine. But right now, if you look at the big leagues, as we talked about, you got the 6 guys. Don't need to say all their names again. You have Tobias Myers kind of in that swingman role, who's going to be capable of kicking into the rotation. You have Jonah Tong. You have Christian Scott. Jack Wenninger is likely to open with AAA Syracuse as well. I don't believe you can ever have enough starting pitching depth. I don't think that exists, period. But as far as signing someone to a guaranteed contract, for me, I think you'd have to have 2 injuries in the next 2 weeks to have to consider that. If there's one, I'm just shifting Tobias Myers into the rotation instead of dishing out whatever millions of dollars that it'll take to sign someone like Giolito.
It just shows how important that trade was, not only to bring in Freddy Peralta, but the Tobias Myers throw in. I was amazed that they were able to do that for just a Sproat and Jet Williams. So I think that the Mets have this just so much confidence now in these kids being either close to being ready. I mean, Jonathan got a taste of it last season, although may not have been ready, but with a little more seasoning this year, he'll probably will be. Christian Scott as well. I know they signed a guy like Carl Edwards Jr. to be a starter / swingman, so they may go to him first before they sign anyone, and I guess put more money into the team and have to take I guess the tax issues that come along with that. Let's talk about these top 30 prospects you have here, and you put the list out this week. We'll start right off at the top with Nolan McLean. And what I liked what you said in your article is that he has the stuff, mound presence, and even keeled nature to be a front of the rotation starter, which I think is huge. You just watched him on the mound, and it just like nothing phased him. Nothing phased him at all, and he really does seem like a pitcher that's been in the major leagues longer than he has.
Nolan McLean's someone I've been high on since the Mets drafted him. Connor and myself on the Mets pod were the ones to give him the nickname Cowboy Ohtani when he was still hitting. And he said to Jerry Blevins on a show that he was none too pleased with that nickname. So we have stricken it from the record. It never happened. But look, Nolan has exceeded the highest of expectations. Like, I knew the stuff was there, but what people quickly have forgotten is Nolan was a setup man at Oklahoma State. He wasn't a starter. He was just a setup guy who threw 2 pitches, fastball up to 98 and breaking ball. That's all he did. Now he gets into the Mets pitching development system. He has 6 genuine pitches that he can throw, and he'll throw them in almost any count. He's so confident on the mound, as you said. Just looks like he's been a big leaguer for a long time. I went to his big league debut against Seattle. I made it a point that I had to be there, and nothing phased him behind the back play, everything. Like, Nolan McLean, I'm sad that this is going to be the last prospect list I'm going to be able to put him on, because a lot of people are like, Nolan's not a prospect. He's already made the major leagues, but he's technically still a prospect because he's still rookie eligible. So I will keep the opportunity to write about Nolan McLean as a prospect for as long as I can, because I think next time I update this list, that's going to be over and done with. But he's slated to be, your 1B to Freddy Peralta, or whatever you want to call it. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's the Mets' best pitcher in 2026.
It's so great that the Mets have 2 prospects that have the opportunity to come up here and have the opportunity for a rookie of the year, which means for the Mets, they get a draft pick. So having 2 to be able to do that, in him and Nolan McLean and Carson Bench, that's got to feel good for David Stearns. When it comes to McLean, and he kind of came in high pressure situation off the bat. I mean, the Mets desperately needed starting pitching. He really took the bull by the horns, and in such a tough spot as this team was trying to make a postseason run here, they ended up not doing that. But he came in very poised. He came in very confident. He's going to get another test in the next couple of days, being in this WBC, with pitching for Team USA, the final game of the Pool B. And then he could possibly be starting in a finale here if the Team USA makes it all the way to the finals. This is a nice experience, playoff type atmosphere for Nolan.
I agree. And I think that's maybe something that's not talked about enough, because we all just kind of fear the WBC. Like, I'm enjoying it. I'm watching it, but the Edwin Diaz will just never, ever get out of my brain. So I'm always going to have a negative towards the WBC, but I'm enjoying watching it. And I think that's a good point. It's a playoff like atmosphere. You're seeing the excitement at these games. Fans are super into it. So as much grief as some people may give the WBC, what's clear as day, just watch it on TV. It doesn't matter what 2 countries are playing. There's a whole lot of people at the ballpark, and people are super passionate about it. And so Nolan will get that feel for playoff baseball. And in a way he did down the stretch, even though it wasn't playoff baseball, it was like playoff baseball, because they simply had to win each and every day to just keep their hopes alive. But I think this will be a great experience for him. And I compared it on the Mets pod this week. I think Mets fans, we all know about Nolan McLean, and that's fine. I think this is very reminiscent of Jacob deGrom's first All-Star game, where we all knew how good Jacob deGrom was, and then he goes to that All-Star game and starts pumping 100 miles an hour. Everybody then knew how good Jacob deGrom is. I think we're going to come out of the World Baseball Classic, and everybody is going to know how good Nolan McLean is.
Man, that comparison would be music to everyone's ears as a Met fan.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying he's going to have a career like Jacob deGrom. Just the pure moment of everyone realizing how good he is.
So we can't post that as a headline, right? Like,
yeah, I know you clip things for Instagram stories, so I could already envision getting tagged in one of those. Just saying,
I'm fair.
I'm fair when it comes to deGrom.
I'm fair when it comes to those clips. I wouldn't do that to you. Carson Bench, number 2 for you. Number 19 overall pick for the Mets in the 2024 draft. He's a Stearns guy. I mean, he was taken in that Stearns draft. So, ever since David Stearns addressed him being a, possible opening day starter in this outfield, it feels like all eyes were on Carson Bench here. And he's kind of, I guess, lived up to the expectations so far this spring. I mean, on the field, at the plate, playing defense. And I mean, he hit a home run the other day. So I've seen nothing but good things so far. And watching Carson Bench, the fact that even Juan Soto moved to left field to allow him to play in right field. I mean, that's your superstar player moving to another position after 1 year. It just looks really good right now for Carson Bench to be able to start in right field on opening day. Do you think that we see that on opening day? I'm more in line every day thinking that he will be the starter.
Each and every day I watch him, and I think he's showing that he belongs. I mean, again, we're not reacting to spring training stat lines. Like, obviously it's nice if he was hitting 050, then we might be reacting. But when I look at stat lines, they're fine. But I'm looking at the at-bats. He looks like he belongs. Not too dissimilar to the Nolan McLean conversation we just had. What I wanted to see from Bench was work good at bats against both righties and lefties, play the field, use the throwing arm. Like, there's been a couple of times where runners, they know, and he's brand new, that Carson Bench has a throwing arm and they're not running on him. So everything, to me, he's checking each and every box. Offensively, you're seeing him work the at-bats. The home run he hit was left on left, so that's always a good sign because typically young players do struggle, especially left-handed hitters against left-handed pitching. So everything for me, I can't think of a reason to not have Carson Bench as the opening day right fielder. And I don't want to hear surface time. I don't want to hear anything like that. I want someone to give me what is a good reason that Carson Bench shouldn't get the opportunity and the runway to be the opening day right fielder. And you do that, you bat him 8th, you bat him 9th. It's frankly like not even like a high pressure spot for him. You just put him in the bottom of the order and let him prove himself. And you deal with the ups and downs. Because here's the reality. If Carson Bench were sent to AAA to start 2026 and he raked down there and you called him up on April 23rd or whatever, and you got that extra year of service time, everything's great. I got news for you. He's still going to have ups and downs at the major league level. So I'm willing to ride with that from opening day because he's showing enough at the plate and in the field in spring training. And it's not as if the competition, and Mike Tauchman's playing good ball too. That's not a diss at Tauchman, but it's not like his competition is just up here and Bench is down here. Like, they're neck and neck. Frankly, I've been a little more impressed with Bench than Tauchman. So I can't think of a good reason that Carson Bench is not facing Paul Skeens March 26th at Citi Field.
It seems like everybody's been playing well in right field. MJ Melendez and the opportunities he's gotten, Tyrone Taylor as well. But, when Carson Bench is playing as well as he has, and the fact that, like you said, batting him 8th and 9th, you're not asking him to be like the savior of the team. Like when Pete Alonso was blowing it off in spring training in 2019, it was like the Mets were looking for something new, something fresh to be a part of this team and kind of, be what David Wright was and Jose Reyes was when they were coming up. But you're not getting that when you're talking about Carson Bench. You have Lindor, you have Soto. He's not going to be asked to be the main player, at least at this point in time. So it really feels like he'll be easing into his role here.
It's a perfect soft landing, I think, is a term that a lot of people use. It's as soft a landing as you could get for the major leagues. I'm just go ahead, put him out there. and you deal with the ups and downs because they are going to happen. I'm not here to tell people that Carson Bench is going to be going bonkers from day one. There's going to be good. There's going to be bad. You're just going to have to deal with it. And you always have the option that if it does go poorly, you can send him back to AAA and he could fix things up. But right now, he's passing every test in my book, and there's still 2.5 weeks for things to change. But where we stand today, I can't justify Carson Bench not being on the opening day roster.
I'm more worried about the fans' patience with him than I am about Carson Bench being able to.
I got news. I got news for you. The Mets fans, and I love them. I am one of them. Patience is something we do not have.
Yeah, that is 100% true. Now, even with how well Carson Bench has been playing this spring, I don't think he's really the most talked about prospect that's been playing well, because number 3 for you is the one that has been really lights out for me. AJ Ewing, at the plate, on the field, on the base paths, he has been really good this spring. And I know you said you did not have him on your list last year, and now he's on at number 3 for you, and he's a top 100 MLB prospect. What propelled him for you this high into the rankings?
Man, I mean, just you're seeing it in person right now, obviously during the spring training games, but his 2025 season, just everything came together from the offensive side of things. Like home run power, he hit a homer last week or whenever it was. I don't think that's going to be like a huge part of his game, but there's, I think, room for double-digit home runs. But look, this is excellent bat the ball skills. You're seeing him be able to know the situation. Like he's hit some sacrifice flies, which, by the way, Bruhan or whoever was running was safe today. If you could have challenged it, that would have been another successful sacrifice fly for AJ Ewing. But nonetheless, look, it's bat to ball. It is a real advanced plan at the plate. He has a very low chase rate. Like he's not chasing balls. He knows the strike zone really well. So you're starting with bat the ball and on base skills. Elite athlete is on the base paths. He stole 70 bases. So that is going to be a big part of his game. And defensively, you hyped it up a little bit. The Mets and Ewing himself. I talked to Andy Green on the Mets pod, who's the Mets senior vice president of baseball development, and AJ Ewing. So if you want to listen to those interviews, it was on 2 weeks ago, I think, show. But they don't even think he's cracked the surface of what he can be defensively in center field, because AJ Ewing was a shortstop growing up. He never played the outfield until last year. He has like a combined 100 games or just over 100 games at center field in his professional career. And right now, I would say it's above average defensively. He needs some works on his routes and his jumps, but those are things that just come with time. Like right now, he's so successful because even if it's not an optimal route or the best jump, he has enough athleticism to make up for it. Once he gets those down, he might be elite defensively. So to me, putting AJ Ewing at number 3, I think it's probably unpopular. I don't know how many other lists will have him necessarily that high, but I think when we look up in the middle of the season, I think AJ Ewing will be maybe a consensus top 30 or better prospect in the sport. I'm incredibly high. The Mets are incredibly high. And I think it's one of those things, not necessarily the reason, but I think the Mets felt a little better about being able to part with Jet Williams because of the presence of somebody like AJ Ewing.
Well, you had Jet Williams playing center field. You had Carson Bench playing center field. Is the reason of AJ Ewing's success and him, improving so quickly and vastly, is that the reason why we're seeing, Jet Williams be traded and Carson Bench now moving to right field? Is that a part of the decision making when it comes down to it?
As far as Jet goes, I wouldn't say it was a major factor, so I don't want that what I said to be like taken out of context. Yeah. But I think when they were debating on what to do and how to get Freddy Peralta, they tried a whole bunch of different machinations of a deal to try to figure it out. Couldn't get off of Jet Williams being in it. And I think Ewing played at least somewhat of a role in them saying, all right, we can do this because we have AJ, and then, among other factors. As far as Benj in right field, that's his natural position. That's where he played in college. So center field was an adjustment for Benj. And the reason the Mets did that was this time last year, AJ Ewing was someone that like I thought had some potential. I was close to ranking like 29th or 30th just to throw him on the list as, hey, this is someone to keep an eye on. But he was a just miss guy. The Mets were basically saying Juan Soto is a right fielder. I think they operated under the assumption that he wanted to play right field and he got $765 million. So he gets to do exactly what he wants to do. And the pathway for Carson Benj was either left field, which at the time was filled with Brandon Nimmo. I don't think the Mets had any visions that they were going to want to or be able to trade Brandon Nimmo, and that ultimately happened. So the pathway for Carson Benj was to figure out center field, and he was fine out there. Like, I think if Carson Benj had to play center field, I compared it to maybe a little bit like Trent Grisham, where you're fine out there. You're not getting there on like high-end athleticism. It's like above average athleticism, but it would just be on routes and jumps and just being smart out in center. I think this is just Benj playing his natural position, and thankfully the Juan Soto left field thing worked out because I think that's going to be good for him as well. So I don't think Ewing had a huge impact on Benj. That's just more putting him where he is most comfortable and frankly where he fits best among all three outfield spots.
See, the WBC came in handy because if we don't find out that Juan Soto is playing left field for them, he's not being asked to move probably from right field. So it was big to get him to move over. The question's probably not even asked. So having him now be in left field, having Carson Benj back in his natural position, obviously, Luis Robert Jr. is going to be in center field. And this is why I like when the Mets make these type of deals, like 1 or 2 year deals for certain players. And a lot of Met fans get upset because they're not signing big long-term deals. They want their prospects to be playing in these positions at some point really soon. And if AJ Ewing is rising as fast as he has, we may see him, like you said, in 2027.
Yeah, I think it's super possible. Like if Ewing gets off to the start that he kind of was finishing with AA, like I won't be shocked if he's in AAA by like June or July. Like I think he's going to see the AAA level this year. And I think 2027 really stands out as maybe the year that AJ Ewing can burst onto the major league scene. And when you think about these shorter term deals, like Luis Robert is, a year by year thing for 2 years. And if he's healthy and awesome, great. You keep him for $20 million for 2027 and you don't even think about it. But the reality is David Stearns, as much as it does hurt fans, because I know fanatic, the whole thing, like you want to be attached to players, and it's hard to be attached to players when the roster has the potential to change over every year, every 2 years. But that's, I think, that how David Stearns was always going to want to do it. There will be some mainstays, like Juan Soto's not going anywhere. Francisco Lindor's not going anywhere. And you know what? If Carson Benj ends up being the player that we think he can be, he's not going anywhere anytime soon either. So it's just about maintaining flexibility for David Stearns. I think that's how he's always going to want to build his roster.
Hey, you want to be like the Dodgers on the East Coast? That's how they did it for the first 10 years. Keep rotating players out outside of, keeping Clayton Kershaw and then picking up a guy like Justin Turner and holding on to him for a while. It was a constant moving until they found the right piece. That's what the Mets need to do. Constantly be moving players in and out until they find the right pieces. They have Lindor, they have Soto, and you just hope that they continue this run here. Now, that number 4, you have Jonah Tong. Brought up, I felt like a little too early, did not get much reps down in AAA, and then he just got thrown into the fire, just like McLean did. But McLean, obviously the poise, the confidence was a little bit different than what we've seen from Jonah Tong, who's a little bit younger. And what does he have to do to improve and get himself back into this Mets rotation?
Yeah, Jonah wasn't ready, and that's okay. Like he was called up. He was called up out of necessity. The Mets quite simply ran out of starting pitchers to throw out there, so they didn't have a choice. So Jonah had to come up, and obviously he had a fantastic year. I mean, we're talking legitimate, just video game numbers. A 1.43 ERA for a whole minor league season. But what's big for him? One, command. that's kind of where it starts, is throwing strikes consistently, and also command within the strike zone, like his fastball, that with the IVB and the ride that it has, it's important that that pitch sits middle to up. If he gets a little low on it, then it kind of rides right into the middle of the zone, and that's when it's susceptible of being hit. His Vulcan changeup is another plus pitch, which he really kind of hammered out this time last year. So it just shows the kind of thinker and tinkerer he's able to be as a pitcher. But the biggest thing is going to be figuring out that third and fourth pitch. And what has made me feel really good watching him pitch this spring, Jonah knows he has the fastball. He knows he has the changeup. He knows he needs the other stuff. So the cutter is a pitch that he's been throwing more than any other pitch. So it's something that he's been working on throughout the offseason and in spring training. And he's showing the ability to zone it, and that's really important. He's kind of had, between his first two outings, two different cutters. His first outing, it was like a 90 to 92 mile an hour cutter that was not much break, just a tiny bit. Then his second start, it was more in like the 87 to 89 range, but there was a little more break on it. So I think he's still figuring out maybe which one he prefers. And then the curveball, the pitch is something that he's always loved to throw, that old school, slow 74 to 76 mile an hour loopy 12 to 6 curveball. It just doesn't really play. So he's been tinkering with a different shape there, and some people calling it a death ball shape, more in the 80 to 82 mile an hour range. So I think the factors for Jonah, and it's important for him to go to AAA and to continue to work on these things. The cutter, figuring out which one you want to throw and being able to do so consistently, and then figuring out what that curveball is going to look like, and then just overall throwing more strikes. So if he goes to AAA and he's able to hammer out, let's say, two of those three things, I still think the sky is the limit for Jonah Tong. And there's very much a possibility that he's a number 3, number 2 type of starter. Like, I won't be shocked at all if that outcome is reached, but he just has more work to do to get there.
And he's young enough to do it. So,
yeah,
look, he was one of the guys that I was not willing to part with in a trade from the starting pitching perspective. I know Spro is probably a little bit more ready and for that role, and maybe they'll see him in the Milwaukee rotation at some point this year. But Tong, I just felt like the potential was too much. You mentioned that 1.43 ERA for the minors. Like, that's not something I was willing to give up on, especially so young into the season. Now, last time you were on the show, we were talking about Jacob Reimer. He's in at number 5. You said he needed to work on his defense. The potential for the offense was there, but the defense needs to be improved. Did he come a long way since then?
Still needs work on his defense. But he did make a couple good plays today. So I will, where we record here on Sunday, he made a couple good plays, but that's something that was a huge focus of his. I talked to him when I was down in spring training, and this is a guy that has bought in to the analytics of hitting, and he's been working with the Mets organization he remade his swing last year. He opened his stance a little bit. He changed kind of like his weight transfer, and it led to just such a really good year for Jacob Reimer, just all around average on base, the raw power that he had, even dating back to coming out of high school. Like, this was the first year that it actually made its way into game action, and he hit 17 home runs between Brooklyn and Binghamton. But from a defensive standpoint, he told me he thinks he can be a third baseman. He gets reps at first, and he's willing to do whatever the Mets, want him to do. But third base is where his focus is, and he still has a little bit of ways to go because there's enough throwing arm to play third base. It's just the lateral quickness and the reactions, things that he just needs to get better at. Most scouts and evaluators that I talk to think like he's probably going to end up at first base. So kind of whatever Jacob wants, it may not matter long term, but the Mets will send him out as a third baseman, and he will get first base reps as well, but they're going to continue to develop him as a third baseman.
Yeah, first base and third base is up in the air over the next couple of seasons. I even remember, was it 2024 when Pete Alonso was struggling? It's like, well, don't resign him. Ryan Clifford will be ready. Who you have at number 6, And then, Pete has the great season last year, and now everyone misses Pete and wants him back. When you look at Clifford, who's also first base, who do you think is better primed for that position? Because, Jacob Reimer could play third base, but we don't know what's going to happen with Bo Bichette. He may stay, he may go. That may be another spot, like we talked about earlier, that's just constantly moving every couple of years. So who's going to your eyes, would be the better person to play first base? Is it Clifford or is it Reimer?
I think Clifford's going to probably have the chance to get the first shot because he had already been in AAA and he's going to start back there. And I saw like a little bit of growth. Like Clifford is never going to have a big hit tool. He's never going to hit for a good high average. Like I think
he's not going to be Pete, is what you're saying. We're not getting 50 home runs and
I don't think quite 50, but Ryan Clifford has real power, man. I mean, I think this is 30 plus. The exit velocities are there. He shows the ability to loft the baseball consistently. He's able to pull the ball. So like he sees the ball really well. Something that he did grow a little bit in 2025. The strikeout rate did trim down from 29% in 2024 to 25% in 2025. So a 4% dip. Still a little higher than you'd like it to be, knowing that it's going to be higher than at the major league level than the minor league level. But part of that was he wanted to get more aggressive early in counts because leading in, from the Mets got him through 2024, he almost was like trying to work the count every time he was at bat and letting pitches go by that he could have jumped on. And he did a better job, not perfect, but a better job in 2025 of being aggressive earlier in counts. And when he gets on a baseball, I mean, you're talking 90th percentile exit velocities over 107 miles an hour, max of like 111, 112. So this is a guy that can hit the baseball really hard and he can hit the baseball really far. And defensively, you've seen him some in the corner outfield spots. And I think the Mets will like allow that versatility to exist in his game. But I don't think he's an outfielder at the next level. You even saw it in the game against whoever it was, somebody, where he turned the 3-2 double play to end the game. Like he's smooth around first base. I think he's going to be able to profile there perfectly fine defensively, average to maybe a tick above average. And he'll be in AAA. So if something were to happen with the triumvirate of Jorge Polanco, Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, whatever is going on at first base for the Mets, it wouldn't shock me at all if Ryan Clifford made his big league debut in 2026 and got the opportunity to be a lefty thumper in this Mets order.
I'd love to have a first baseman who will be able to turn a double play and not have the heebie-jeebies about it.
He's good with that. And like when I talk about the outfield, Ryan Clifford has enough throwing arm to play the corner outfield, so the arm is not the trouble here. So it's just
like he's blocked though at this point, right?
In the bench, yeah. And I think from an athletic standpoint, it's not ideal. Like you don't want Ryan Clifford in the corner outfield. Just, like if you have to, you will. You want him at first base where I think he'll profile well.
And David Stearns likes the versatility. If you could throw someone in the outfield or first base, I mean, he loves versatility when it comes to these players. Also on that last show that we were on together, Elian Pena had just signed with the Mets. So like, how's his progression going? You have him at number 7 on your list.
Mets couldn't be happier with their biggest signing from the 2025 class. They signed for $5 million. Started, I'm reading this from my top 30 to make sure I don't have the stats wrong. He started his professional career in the Dominican Summer League going 0 for 26. And
trade him.
Bust. Big bust, Elian Pena. However, the next 46 games, he hit 342 with a 463 on base and a 618 slug. 13 doubles, 9 home runs, 32 RBIs, 18 stolen bases, and walked more than he struck out. He also had 2 separate 3 home run games. Elian Pena, and he's reported to camp in better shape, added some physicality to his build. And I'm sure if you didn't see it, just go ahead and search Elian Pena on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And take a look at that home run that he hit a couple days ago off of Liam Doyle, the Cardinals' number 5 overall pick out of college this past draft, who's known to have one of the best fastballs in all of minor league baseball, tried to get a fastball up past Elian, and that's left on left, and Elian pulled it for a home run. Man, the Mets are excited. I'm excited. Like number 7, I think amongst like the major publication prospect rankings, I think I'm the high person on Pena. But watching him so far this spring, now that he's stateside, I'm almost like, man, was I even light on where I'm ranking Elian? Because I think when we talk again, months from now, towards the end of the season, or whenever we talk again, but towards the end of the season, it won't shock me if Elian Pena is number 1, number 2, number 3 in this list. And I'm very excited to see what he brings to the table as he makes his stateside debut in 2026.
Man, 18 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Physical kid.
Wow. Number 8, you got Jack Wenninger now, the AA 292 ER, 2.92 ERA this spring so far, 2.70 ERA. I know it's only 3 games played, 10 strikeouts he's had as well. But could he be more ready than Jonah Tong is, and at some point eventually leapfrog Jonah Tong in someone that the Mets could call up, just like Tong did to Sproat?
Not impossible. The only advantage that Tong will have is that he's on the 40-man roster, so that does play a role depending on where the Mets are at from a roster standpoint. But Jack Wenninger just looks, when you watch him pitch, this looks like a major league starting pitcher. I don't think he has like sky high upside. Like I talk about Jonah Tong, like it could be way up here, but I feel really good that Wenninger's going to slot in as like a number 4 that you could rely on. He's got that 6'4", 215-pound, like vintage build. His fastball velocity went up in 2025 from 24 to 25. His average fastball velocity went up just over 2 miles an hour, and he's up to 97 now, which you've seen in some of these spring training games. I want to talk to StatCast or whoever runs Baseball Savant. He throws a splitter, not a changeup. So stop calling it a changeup. It's a splitter. But the splitter has gotten tons of swing and misses. That's dating back to at college at Illinois, throughout his minor league career, and of course, so far here in big league spring training. And just to show, we're talking about big game pitching, right? Like we were talking about that with Nolan McLean. Jack Wenninger started I know it's a different scale, certainly, but game 3, which is the final game of the Eastern League Championship against the Tigers AA affiliate, went 5 innings, allowed 2 runs, struck out 11, facing 2 of the top 8 prospects in the sport in Kevin McGonigal and Max Clark, both obviously in the Tigers organization. Those 2 combined to go 0 for 6 with 3 strikeouts in that game against Wenninger. So like I said, fastball up to 97, split, slider, cutter. He's starting to mix in a sinker, so he has 2 different fastball shapes. I think this is just a high floor. You know what you're going to get out of this guy, number 4 type starter. And just go ahead and look at what starting pitchers are getting paid. That's a very valuable person to have.
Those moments are important. I mean, you did the deep dive with AJ Ewing, and he talked about, winning culture and building a winning culture. And you do that from the minor leagues up. How many years have we watched Mets baseball? And this is the best that the Mets farm system has been. But in years past, we've had terrible minor league teams. And when these guys come up here, it doesn't translate to winning. And we've seen why this team hasn't been a consistent winner year in and year out. So I think everything possible, like even with Nolan McLean going to the World Baseball Classic, if they win that, the confidence this kid's going to have coming into opening day and this season is going to be huge for the possible time that he pitches in the postseason. So I think all these winning opportunities and winning culture moments, I think they're absolutely huge. It doesn't matter if it's low A, double A, triple A. I just think everything is important.
I made sure to ask every single person in that clubhouse that played on the Rumble Ponies for that championship. So I talked to Reimer, I talked to Wenninger, I talked to Ewing, I talked to Nick Morabito, Chris Suero, everyone that was in that locker room. I made sure to ask them about it, and every one of them gave a similar answer. It's like, we know that we can win together. So when the time comes, of course, they're not all going to make it to Queens. They're not all going to be members of the New York Mets, but a chunk of them probably will be. And they know how to win together. And now you combine it with some star players. I don't know I don't know how much stock necessarily to put into wins and losses at the minor league level, but there's no way it's not a positive. I just don't know exactly how it correlates, but it's definitely a good thing when you win together.
You have Jonathan Santucci at number 9, left-handed pitcher. Now that the thought process is he a starter or is he a reliever? So where do you see him filling out by the time he gets to the major leagues? Is it a starter or a reliever?
Depends on the changeup. That's really it. It's like fastball, slider, they're ready to go. Like if you wanted to put Jonathan Santucci in a big league bullpen tomorrow and just tell him you don't throw a changeup anymore, you just throw fastball, slider, I think he'd do just fine. The changeup is something he's worked really hard on dating back to last year. He didn't throw it as much as I would have liked to have seen in season. But so far this spring, the Mets have been encouraged. It's a little inconsistent at times still, but it's better than it was last year. So I would anticipate you see him throwing it a lot more this year. And I think it's as simple as that. If he can get that changeup to be an above average pitch, Jonathan Santucci is a number 3 or 4 starter. If the changeup never quite gets there, I think he's a 2-pitch power reliever, and maybe the fastball velocity and slider velocity tick up a little bit in the short spurts. So that was kind of the tiebreaker, the way you framed it between him and Wenninger, because I have them neck and neck as prospects.
Yeah.
I feel really confident that Wenninger is a starter. I think Santucci has a higher upside than Wenninger, but also a lower floor. So I still think starter is really possible, but I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that changeup because that to me is going to be the deciding factor for him.
He's really the first left-handed starter, I guess,
since Peterson.
So, like,
yeah.
How would you compare those two guys? Like, does he have more upside than a David Peterson does? I know, obviously, David Peterson's in the major leagues, but minor league comparable, I guess.
Yeah, I think when they were both, let's talk like when they were both prospects. Like, I think Santucci as a prospect had more upside than David Peterson did because there's just bigger stuff. Like Peterson's a good pitcher, but it's not huge stuff. Like he'll sometimes touch 95, but it's mainly low 90s. Santucci's going to get up to 97, maybe 98 miles an hour, and the sliders in the upper 80s into the low 90s. So it's power stuff. So now it's just a matter of figuring out that third pitch. And he's thrown a curveball before. I don't know how much of a factor that's going to be in 2026, but that's something to keep an eye on, what that third and fourth pitch look like. Because statistically, after a slow start, not too dissimilar to Elian Pena, starting off with a 8.14 ERA in his first 6 pro starts. He had a 1.96 ERA the rest of the way with 117 strikeouts, and batters only hit 180 against him. He kept his walks in check. So look, this is an athletic kid, a smart kid. It's just a matter of putting the whole package together. And I anticipate he'll start back with AA and look to make his way to AAA at some point in 26.
The final player on your top 10, Mitch Voigt. I don't think he was drafted the last time you were on here. I think they were going into that draft. Their first pick in that 2025 draft last season. What should we know about what Mitch Voigt has to give to this Mets team or organization?
Mets were really impressed in his first stint in Pro Bowl. He played for Low A St. Lucie. They were really impressed that his overall athleticism, his defense was like, they thought they were getting a good glove, but they thought his defense was even better than they were expecting when he came in. And he just really has taken to coaching and instruction. And heading into the offseason, the Mets and him worked on a plan to remake his swing and change some things. And so far in spring training, he took to that. So he has a different stance, just everything with his swing is very different. And Andy Green told me that he is hitting rockets all over on the backfields, really starting to hit the ball hard. So I think this has the chance to be a future everyday type of second baseman, but his athleticism, the Mets are giving him run at shortstop too. So he's going to play, I think, both up the middle spots, and the batted ball data has really stood out on the backfields for them. And they think this is a guy that can take a huge step in his first pro season. And like, if you baseball reference his stats from St. Lucie, you're probably not going to be particularly blown away, but they believe in 2026, you're going to see a different level from him. And I would guess that would be in Brooklyn to start. So if you are in the area and you want to go see the Mets first round pick, I think Voit brings some exit velocity and some bat speed and some athleticism and defense to the table. And he was the Mets first pick. So it's someone that they obviously liked a lot, and we'll see kind of where it goes from here.
We're going to get into the second half of your list and pick apart some of these players that I want to discuss. But Mets Prospect Group, as well as CMH 1986, are mentioning one player. It says, expect to see Yuniel De La Cruz on Joe's top 30 list this time next year, 2027 class, $3.3 million bonus. And it's that same thing coming from CMH. Mets lower levels of the system is really good with some very exciting prospects. Yuniel De La Cruz, 2027 class. What are your thoughts on him?
I'll tell you this, Mets Prospect Group probably knows more about Yuniel De La Cruz than I do. I will reserve learning about him for probably a few months now. But look, what has been a change over the last couple of years is the Mets are now shopping more at the top of the international free agent bucket. Like, they've always signed like one pretty like well-regarded guy, but obviously Elian Pena was either number 1 or number 2, depending on where you looked in the 25 class. They will pull in Wandy Asian, which I found that's Asian is how you say it. So look, I don't like his last name. He just needs to become so good that we just call him Wandy, and we just rock with that. But being able to pull him from the Yankees, another guy who was ranked among the top, 2 or 3 prospects in the class, and it sounds as if Yuniel De La Cruz is going to be, somewhere in the top 5 to 10 or whatever of the 2027 class. So we'll get there. But right now, I'm not ready to talk about 2027 signings quite yet.
But Joe, Wandy, and Elian, they're both shortstops. How's this going to ever work out?
Oh, no. Elian takes a few steps to his right, and Wandy takes a few steps to his left, and off we go.
He was one of the guys I wanted to talk about. I'm glad you mentioned him. Wandy at number 15. The Mets being able to pluck him from the Yankees, it feels like, not to get on the Yankees, but it feels like their farm system, they have farm system issues, and with their minor leagues, that they weren't able to sign him. I think that another player too that they were having issues with as well. So the Mets were able to get him and bring in him in. What did they like from him that they were like, yeah, we got to take this guy?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few factors as to why this all came to a head. First, the Yankees fired their international scouting director, and international free agency is a huge relationship business. And obviously, the Yankees they made a relationship with Wandy and his family. And when they got rid of that guy, they kind of got wishy-washy on the commitment. So Wandy opened up his free agency. The Rangers made a push and almost got him, but the Mets, the only reason that they could afford to do this is they were going to sign a young player named, I think it's Josue Chicoa. I think that's how you pronounce his first name. But age falsification came out about him, that he wasn't the age that he said he was. So the Mets negated that agreement, because if that hadn't happened, it's not practice where like, oh, Wandy's a better prospect, so we're just going to break a deal with this guy and then go sign Wandy. They would have just signed their guy, and the Rangers or someone else would have ended up with Wandy. But it worked out like perfect storm. The Mets were very aggressive, and Chris Gross in the scouting department were all over it. So they've been scouting him. And look, this is a guy a little different than Elian. Like, I think Elian has a much more like a well-rounded game. I think Wandy, there's going to be some swing and miss in his profile, but right now he is 16 years old, and he's going to play the entire year as a 16-year-old. Exit velocities 110, 111 miles an hour at showcases, like electric bat speed. This has a chance to be, a 25 type home run guy. I think he's probably a better athlete than Pena is. Like, I think he's going to stick up the middle defensively. Second base could be the best spot for him, but shortstop is not out of the realm of possibility long-term. Just a good pivot from the Mets. And again, shopping at the top of the market when you have the opportunity. And sometimes this perfect storm happens, and the Mets have, for me right now, the number 15 prospect in their system. And depending, like, this first Dominican Summer League season from Wandy could push him into the top 10 with ease, especially considering if you look at guys ahead of him, a number of them are probably going to graduate off this list.
You had it, like you said, you had him at number 15. We're going to go back since you mentioned him. I figured let's get into him. I want to go back to number 11. You have Nick Morabito at number 11. This is a guy that I feel like will eventually take over that Tyrone Taylor role on the Mets outfield, that fourth type outfielder. I feel like that's a spot for him, and maybe we see him soon in the major leagues.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, I still think there's a little more potential there than that. Like, I think he could be a second division starter. Like, I don't think he's going to be I don't think you would love him to be your starting center fielder if you're trying to win a World Series necessarily. But he made some strides. Like, he obviously had a strong 2025 season. He goes to the Arizona Fall League, and there's a couple things he wanted to focus on. One of them, hit the ball harder. In Arizona, his 90th percentile exit velocity of 108.6 was kind of in line with like Ryan Clifford exit velocities. He touched 111 there. Obviously, an incredibly small sample size, but this is a great athlete. Play all three spots in the outfield. And talking to him down in spring training, he said his biggest focus this offseason was hitting lefties, which interestingly enough, like, I honestly didn't pay much mind to his reverse splits, but when you really look at it, he hit
it's a big difference.
Yeah, he hit 206 with a 570 OPS against lefties and hit 293 with a 784 against righties. And this is a right-handed hitter. So it's not usual to have that extreme of reverse splits. So I like Morabito. I think, like you said, Tyrone Taylor's contract expires after this year. Would it shock me if Nick Morabito was the Mets' fourth outfielder in 2027? It would not. But I wanted to say that I think there is still a little more in there, and I think there is potential for him to be, like I said, a second division type of starter at the big league level.
At number 14, you had Chris Suero. We got to see him a little bit during spring training. Like what I saw from him, plays a little catcher, plays first base, plays outfield. What do you like in Chris Suero and what he can provide?
The most uniquely versatile prospect since I've been covering things. I don't think I've ever, in my time doing this, seen a Mets prospect come through that can play catcher and a corner outfield spot. I don't think I have. So from a versatility standpoint, that versatility should carry Chris Suero to the major leagues. I don't know if he's going to be an everyday player at the next level. I think he could be just one of those versatile bench pieces. And it's like having a third catcher without having to carry a third catcher, because he has the versatility to play elsewhere. But when you look at his offensive profile, I made sure I wanted to put this one in there. I talked to a scout about him, and I was like, tell me about his hitting profile. He said, Suero will take his daddy hacks when he's up there. Like, he's not going to get cheated. He could stand to improve some approach things, especially when he gets into two strikes. But when you're looking at swing speed, it's there. Exit velocity, it's there. Hard hit rate, like all of that, he's got that. Now it's just a matter of refining his approach. And when you get to two strikes, you don't have to necessarily take those daddy hacks, but they're fun. So I like seeing them, and he hits the ball really hard. And it's a fun prospect that I think will probably start back with AA Binghamton. And, he could crack the top 10 here whenever we do the update in the midseason or whatever. But yeah, I think it's exit velocity, bat speed, versatility, might be a bench player, but I think he has a chance to be an incredibly valuable one.
If you had to rank his positions, how well he does them, catcher, first base, outfield, how would you, from best to worst?
Catcher, left field, first base.
So is there a scenario where maybe at some point, like I know you said maybe not being a star, but is there he could be a better catcher than Francisco Alvarez behind the plate?
I don't think so. I think Alvy's catching is underrated. Like I think he's a good catcher. He just has moments, right? There's lapses and moments, but I think Alvy's good behind the plate. So I don't think Suero would pass him defensively. But I think it's just a good factor to have somebody that can play all these spots, and he's athletic. Like, the fact that he is athletic enough to be a catcher and play left field, like, that's a better athlete than you would think when you think of someone whose best position would be catcher.
Now, your number 16th prospect, as well as your 18th, I'm going to lump them together as in Ryan Lambert and Dylan Ross. These are guys I think that, I mean, obviously Dylan Ross got the little call up, didn't get to pitch, but they did call him up, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure that made him happy to at least feel
And that
getting to the
that
major league.
paycheck,
Yeah,
that 2-day major league paycheck was probably pretty nice.
Ryan Lambert is hitting 98, 99 consistently. He's had some good moments in spring training so far. I think Dylan Ross got sent down this week. I
Yep.
may have.
Yep.
That's true, right? Okay.
Yep.
I thought I saw that. What are your thoughts on these two guys coming up with the Mets bullpen? Because as we know, I mean, they have that taxi cab ready to bring some players up, but these guys may have a little long lasting power to be a part of this roster.
You're going to see both of these guys in 2026, and I'll quickly talk about both of them. They have some similarities, but some differences. Lambert, as you said, in spring training has been up to 99. He's touched 102 before, so there is triple digits in there, and he has the chance to have an outlier fastball in all of baseball. In his first spring training outing, he averaged 98 miles an hour with 21 inches of induced vertical break. I went on Baseball Savant and did some sorting and clicking around. The closest comp that I could find for a major league fastball in 2025 was Jeremiah Estrada from the Padres, who averaged 97.9 miles an hour and 19.6 inches of induced vertical break. So you're talking like that was maybe the most unique fastball. And Trevor McGill is there too as well with averaging 99 and 19 inches. But Lambert being, 2 inches of induced vertical break, and he even touched 23 on a couple fastballs. He has a chance to have an outlier fastball. He's got a gyro slider, which is a big swing and miss pitch, especially coming off. Like he's able to tunnel it off of his fastball really well, and hitters don't really touch that. And then the changeup is a pitch that he said he's worked on in the offseason and something that he thinks he'll be able to get into game action. I don't think he needs it. I think he just goes fastball slider and just go with that. Dylan Ross, another guy, throws really hard into the upper 90s, will touch 100 miles an hour. But the fastball isn't his best pitch. His best pitch is his splitter that he throws 90 to 92. And he also has a hard slider. So he's able to get swing and misses on his secondary stuff, less so on the fastball. Lambert gets swing and miss on both of his pitches. They both need to work on control and command. So they both walk more batters than you'd like to see. So they'll both be in the AAA Syracuse bullpen to start. I anticipate at some point in the first half of 2026, we'll see probably both of these guys. And as you said, if they're able to throw some strikes at the big league level, I think there's staying power. And these guys, I think, are ones. And Andy Green agreed with me when I asked him down in Port St. Lucie, like these are guys that have high leverage potential.
Justin Willard has a lot of work cut out for him when it comes to cutting the walks, because we knew that it wasn't being done with Jeremy Hefner over the years. So we'll see if Justin Willard could be the guy that solves that problem here. I got a question from the Green Machine saying, which prospect on your top 30 do you see taking the biggest leap this season, or which prospects are you most excited about?
Good question. So one that I would say that I would keep an eye on to take a big leap would be at number 26, right-handed pitcher Camden Lohman. The Mets drafted him in the 8th round of the 25 draft out of high school in Missouri. They signed him for like 3rd round money at $797,000. When he showed up for his physical, everything, the Mets drafted a 6'4", 190-pound, like projectable, like you could see there's room for growth. And they gave him a nutrition and workout plan. And he showed up to spring training having added some good weight. And he's at 212 pounds now. So he's put on a good 20 pounds of good weight. He was more of a late bloomer as a pitcher. Like he was undersized early in high school and he had like a growth spurt and really started to come into his own. But he was up to 95 and shows the ability to spin both a slider and a curveball. Now you put him in this Mets pitching system that is proven to maximize pitchers, as we see all these names like Jack Wenninger, 7th round pick, Jonah Tong, 7th round pick. Like they're finding guys outside of the top 2 rounds, 3 rounds, and turning them into legitimate prospects. And I think Camden Lohman is a guy to keep an eye on, as he'll make his debut probably with the Florida Complex League, but I would anticipate making it to Low A St. Lucie before the year is out. And he's someone I could see taking that big step forward in his first pro season.
Now, before we wrap up the show, I just wanted to go over some news and happenings with this team. Francisco Lindor resumed baseball activities this week, which is a great sign. Really getting out of there, out of the bat real quick, out of that surgery. So happy that the cast is off. He's swinging a bat. He's taking ground balls with Marcus Semien and trying to build that rapport with him. And we finally have a legit double play combination because, let's be honest, Jeff McNeil was nowhere near the defender Marcus Semien is.
No, definitely not. I'm obviously excited that Lindor and Semien are going to be the double play combination. And look, the thing with Lindor and the hamate, it's almost a straightforward 6 weeks. Like, I know Mets fans, we have apprehension with whatever the Mets tell us regarding injuries. We just assume it's a big old lie. But history suggests this is as close to 6 weeks as possible. Francisco Alvarez last year broke the hamate bone on his left hand, his catching hand, and he was back in the big leagues playing baseball games in 6 weeks and 2 days. 6 weeks lines up with Lindor being in time, and the only issue that you have when it comes to opening day is any slight setback just knocks opening day out of the conversation. But like, I don't anticipate like an IL stint being necessary. So right now, I have no reason to think Lindor is not going to be there on opening day, and we will have to deal with, specifically maybe more so from the right side, some of that power being sapped for a period of time. But look, Lindor has battled through a whole bunch of stuff. If it's physically possible for him to be out there, he will be out there on March 26th, and he's checking every box along the way.
Some injury update. Robert Stock needs a thoracic outlet surgery. That's a terrible shame for him, as he was pitching really well in spring, and the shoulder discomfort for him after that outing versus Team Israel. 36 years old, so I don't know how you come back from something like this and be the pitcher that you want to be. Matt Harvey had the same surgery, as well as I think Tom Glavine did back in 2007 or 2008 or something like that. Brandon Waddell also having a little bit of shoulder fatigue. He was supposed to start on Monday, but at least he could still be throwing, just not in game action. And the final thing is some of these Mets in the WBC. Do you see Clay Holmes, man? He looked really good against Great Britain. 3 innings pitched. He had 6 strikeouts, only gave up 1 hit. 28 of those 38 pitches were for strikes. Mark Vientos, not so successful with the Nicaragua team against the Netherlands. He was over 5 with 2 strikeouts, but he did have a hit against Israel in the game today. Huáscar Brazaban against Nicaragua had a scoreless relief outing, as well as Juan Soto had the big mercy rule game-winning home run. They should do that in the major leagues. No, I mean, like cut the game short, maybe.
Yeah, as long as the Mets are winning, you know what, I want even more if the Mets are losing, because I don't want to watch the Mets being down 10 runs. So mercy rule is not the worst idea I've ever heard. But I'll tell you this, Ant, doing prospects, it's obviously a business of guys not necessarily reaching their potential and all of that. Like, it's a business almost of being wrong in a way, covering prospects. But I feel very happy that I was on the right side of history with Clay Holmes as starting pitcher. I think he's going to be even better in 2026 than he was in 2025. And in 2025, I know he hit a wall there in the middle of the year, but then he turned it around. Like, he kind of bust through and came through towards the end of the year. Top 10 in the NL in ERA, finished with more innings pitched at 165 than Ranger Suarez, who everyone thought was like this frontline guy the Mets had to have, has ever thrown in a season in his whole career. And this is Holmes' first year starting. I can't wait to see what year 2 of Clay Holmes as a starter is. I think he's going to be so good. So
no concerns about fatigue in the second or any arm issues in the second year of this going on?
No, typically with these conversions, more often than not, you deal with the issues in year 1. That's not to say he can't get injured. It's pitching. arms break. It's kind of the way it goes. But as far he made it through, like he hit a wall and he came through the other side. I'm optimistic that he's going to be fine going into 26.
Well, Joe, I appreciate the time that you've given me during this show today, and let everyone know what you got coming up, what you're working on, and about all the prospects that you got going.
Yeah, appreciate it. Check out Twitter at PSL The Flushing. You see it kind of right below my face there. SNY.TV. I'll be writing a couple more prospect pieces before opening day. And we have the spring breakout game coming on March 19th. I may or may not be involved in the broadcast of that.
We need you on the broadcast. That was fantastic last year.
We may or may not be doing it again. So yeah, keep an eye on that. But either way, watch the spring breakout game and you may see me on it. I'm obviously excited to see that because I think it's very, like, for a lot of things that Major League Baseball gets some grief about, the spring breakout game I think is a huge success and good for the fans, because we all read about these prospects and not a lot of people have access to watch them. And this is just an opportunity to see all of your top prospects in a game. And just stay tuned to SNY.TV. And also the Mets pod, the most important thing. I do the Mets pod every week. Get that wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, blah, blah, blah. Or SNY's YouTube if you want to see this face and then the very good-looking face who is typically to my left in Connor Rogers.
I heard that they were changing the format of the spring breakout.
Next year. Next year, it's going to be a tournament of some kind, which sounds awesome. I'm very into it, but it makes me very scared that they're doing that because they're saying we're not going to have spring training games, so we're just going to do a tournament of prospect games. That's just me being a little, whatever. But yeah, that will be in 2027. It's going to be actually a single elimination tournament, which I think is pretty cool.
Joe, always great having you on. Appreciate you, my friend. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. If you want to listen to this podcast, you can do that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It'll be up a little bit later on. And if you want to be a part of the chat and conversation, you're doing that here on YouTube. You can do it on X as well. And make sure to check out, I got super thanks, super stickers, and super chat as well as a part on the YouTube port. But that's it for Subway to Shea this week. We will be back next week. But until then, always remember, let's go Mets.